The dead fish was thrown in with the rod and left, but today's story didn't even have the chance to drop the rod. Zhengzhou Little Black CN Fishbone Road Fishing Netizen. Friends who like fishing know that fishing in the daytime is too hot and not very good. Big fish come out to forage at night, so fishing at night in summer is better. In early June 2006, a friend named Zikui invited Little Black to go fishing at night. They went to a reservoir in the west of Zhengzhou and found a reed area that extended into the water. This is what fishermen call the slide, where the reeds are very dense, and the two people walked along, separating the reeds. The two did not sit together because the reeds were too lush, and the distribution of aquatic plants in the water was not ideal. Zikui was on the left side of the slide, and Little Black was on the right, 10 meters apart. After finding the fishing spot, they started to build a nest. After building the nest, the two drove to a nearby stewed noodle restaurant, ordered a large plate of chicken, ordered a few bottles of beer, and were ready to go back to fishing around 9 o'clock. They left the headlamp in the car and went to the reservoir with the headlamp to the fishing position. On the way to the fishing position, Little Black saw someone sitting in the reed area about 10 meters behind his fishing position, facing the reservoir with his back to him. Little Black didn't care, thinking it was another fishing friend who had found a good position. After sitting down, Little Black shouted to the fishing friend facing away from him, "Teacher, how is it? Is there any mouth? This teacher is a respectful address for the elderly in Zhengzhou." But that person didn't answer. Zikui answered from a distance, "The fish just came and haven't gone down yet." Little Black didn't care, thinking what if he could catch a fish? After that, he turned off the headlamp because the most annoying thing about fishing tonight was that others turned on the lights to shine on you. One was dazzling, and the other was afraid of scaring away the fish. After turning off the light, the nightlight stick on Little Black's fishing float was particularly eye-catching. At this time, he found that there was no nightlight stick in front of the fishing friend not far away, so he shouted to the fishing friend again, "Brother, don't you have a nightlight stick?" "I have one, do you want it?" That person still didn't answer, and didn't even look at Little Black, always facing the water surface. Zikui answered again, "Ah, I brought more." Little Black was too lazy to care about him, lit a cigarette, and stared at his own fishing float. At this time, he felt a little cold and couldn't hear the sound of frogs, but he didn't care much at the time. He threw away the cigarette butt and threw a few fishing rods. Suddenly a black float. Little Black immediately rushed up and took the opportunity to lift the rod, and there was a huge force in his hand, but it was very stable. Little Black thought to himself, "Oh, he got a big one." After 2 laps, he turned on the headlamp to look for the scoop net. As a result, he found that the scoop net was forgotten in the car. So he called Zikui. "Zikui, did you bring the scoop net? I caught a big one, but I didn't bring the scoop net." However, Little Black shouted for a long time without a response, so he took out his mobile phone and called Zikui. When the mobile phone screen lit up, it was 10:10. He called Zikui, but he couldn't get through. He took a look and found that there was no signal. He put his mobile phone in his pocket, and Little Black looked at the water surface. This fishing line in the water was very stable, drawing circles. The fish must not be small, but nothing could be seen in the green water. At this time, he suddenly thought of the person next to him. Little Black looked at him and shouted again, "Brother, don't you have a net? Lend it to me." At this time, under the illumination of the headlamp, Little Black saw clearly that the person was sitting in the reed area, wearing a black dress similar to the Tang suit. The fabric of the dress faintly reflected the luster, as if there was a circular pattern, white hair under which you could see half a face, a green face. I don't know whether it was Little Black's lamp that shone on him, or whether he heard him speak. That person turned his face to Little Black. When Little Black saw the other half of his face, he immediately felt uneasy. Horror spread all over his body. His hair stood on end. His legs standing there were like lead, unable to move. The other half of that person's face was covered with the same wrinkles, just like being twisted and shrunk together after being burned. One eye was covered by wrinkles for half, and the remaining half was a white eye. The other eye emitted a green light under the illumination of the headlamp, staring at Little Black. Little Black's scalp was numb. He wanted to run, but couldn't run. He wanted to shout, but couldn't make a sound, just like a nightmare. Only his eyes and head could move. At this time, that person moved. He took a few steps forward in the reed area. At this time, Little Black saw clearly that the person was not sitting there, but his legs were very short, much shorter than ordinary people, just standing there and making people think he was sitting. Under Little Black's gaze, he splashed into the water, splashing water. Little Black followed him and looked at the place where he jumped down. The green water instantly brought up a large amount of silt, stirring the water muddy. What's more terrifying is that the muddy water obviously surged towards Little Black. At that time, Little Black almost wet his pants, but he couldn't move. Little Black could only stare at the water surface. However, the rolling muddy water turned around 2 or 3 meters away from Little Black and went towards the direction of Little Black's fishing line. Little Black immediately felt a sharp drop on the rod. Then at the position of Little Black's fishing line, he slowly showed his head in the water, just like Little Black caught a person, and the two people formed a face-to-face situation. That person stared at Little Black, showing a strange smile. The most inexplicable thing was that his hair and face exposed to the water were not wet, just like falling on an oil paper umbrella. Suddenly, that person kept looking at Little Black and quickly retreated. Then with a bang, the fishing float and line flew into the sky. The fishing rod tip bounced back, and with this fishing line, God instantly produced a ball of fire in the dry burn. At this time, Little Black found that he could move. When he left the rod, he could leave something and run away, and shout out. He shouted out, and Little Black's voice came from behind him. "What's the matter? Brother, hey, what are you shouting about?" Zikui pulled Little Black to the car, turned on the light. Little Black's heart was a little more stable, and told Zikui what had just happened. Zikui listened to a face of confusion. First, he didn't hear Little Black asking him to borrow the scoop net. Second, Zikui's mobile phone has always had a signal and has been chatting with fishing friends in the fishing group. Moreover, there is indeed a record of Little Black calling Zikui on his mobile phone. What happened that night, what Little Black saw, he also said he couldn't understand, but since then, he has never dared to fish at night again. See you at the next story.